Welcome, everyone. I am here with Henrietta. Today, we're going to talk about how to make good decisions predictions, and this will apply to whether it's for investments or relationships or just decisions at work or in personal life, etc. So, Henrietta, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. So yeah, it's an excellent topic. So because we have so many options in this hyper-connected world of today, so this can be sometimes very overwhelming, almost too many options. And so the big question is have to choose what is best for us for pretty much anything, including profession, projects, our health, relationships, investments, and so on. So people often say don't be overly critical because it's not nice to hear, but judgments and assessments are very necessary, and I would say also natural, because it's natural because this is basically how the brain works, how the human brain works. The human brain is pretty much, so I'm a neuroscientist, and the human brain is pretty much a prediction machine. So it compares past, present, future, and makes connections all over the map. So for example, when people ask me how my mind works and how I think, these days I often compare it to a machine learning algorithm. But the truth is, of course, is that machine learning has been modeled on the human brain. So it's completely normal. We don't need to be afraid of judgments and assessments, in my opinion. The question is more how to make them accurate and useful. So my area of interest is mental health, and more specifically addiction and recovery from addiction. And so it's a huge problem for society, but sadly, many people take a very, very long time to struggle. Many never even recover from an addiction. And even if they do, usually it takes a long time, decades even, or a lifetime. And so this was also my story. So I also have that background. I recovered from an addiction myself. And that was, in fact, a part of my inspiration to get into the neuroscience field and study addiction. Because I was also struggling with finding the right method for me. For a very long time, I kept using the wrong one because I just took suggestions from outside and so on. So it's, of course, if there is no structure, there is no like objective measurement, there is no data, it's not surprising that these methods fail. So we need to, for addiction, specifically what I work on, we need to understand better how people develop this problem in the first place and how to resolve it in a way that will be efficient and also satisfying for an individual. Satisfying is very important because people usually don't do things that they don't find inspirational or interesting. So the problem with assessments in general is that both self and external assessments tend to be often biased and involve even a lot of projection. And this can mislead both the person who is being evaluated for, let's say, for a treatment or for any choice, and also the judge. And it can even generate false data and irrelevant data, I would say. And so go on false tracks and just repeat on and on and on, and in these vicious cycles, and leads basically nowhere. And so this is part of the reason why people with addiction struggle so much also. So our aim, so my company is called Objective Recovery, and our aim is to help people create the best fitting personalized addiction recovery strategy. And for this, we use an integrated combination of assessments. And so for addiction, it's a psychological and behavioral assessment on the one side, and on the other side is looking at biological measures, biomarkers, for example, genetics, brain imaging, things like that. So it's integrate this data and use this as in a combination to predict basically what might be the best fit for a person. And of course, we don't do it ourselves. That's exactly the point. The way to make this more efficient is to automate it. So we are developing an algorithm or algorithms that can do the data collection, integration, and also the prediction. So that's basically what I do is, one thing that I always like to mention is that the assessment, in terms of the assessment, is that most of basically over 90% of the human mental processes tend to be unconscious. And so this serves very positive survival goals. Unconscious can be fast very often if we need to react to something very fast. But of course, if we have a serious condition condition such as an addiction, it's not a good idea to just keep repeating the behaviors unconsciously. That's exactly why we stay in that cycle and even relapse after periods of recovery. So we try to tap into these unconscious processes using this behavioral assessment, which is not just simply a questionnaire or questions or conversations. So it's just like addiction is a life experience. We use a virtual experience, gamification. So people just build a story, and the algorithm collects data based on that, and so that's basically part of the data set. And the other parts are biological measures, as I mentioned. So that's basically what we do. It's a lots of trial and error to figure out what is the most optimal combination of data and how to make the prediction efficiently.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we have a variety audience, and I think there was a lot of really intellectual stuff said there, a lot of really, really valuable stuff said there. You know, machine learning being modeled after the human brain, machine learning AI being modeled after the human brain. Some people know that very easily. Some people are new to that, but very, very correct. And it's a really cool way to look at the human brain, if you know machine learning, just for the analogy, to realize like data comes in, I see, 5 white dogs, but then I've never seen a white wolf before. And so then like, how do I identify that as wolf, right? AI and humans go through this normally. So it is very like, that's what our prediction machine is, right? And so it's helpful when we have multiple AIs, multiple software tools, multiple people checking ourselves, right? That's how we kind of don't get ourselves caught up in a projection when we're trying to make a decision about predicting something, some stock, some company, some human. Is this founder going to be successful? Is this human or this relationship going to be successful? When we can realize that our ability to ingest data of all the relationships we've seen, all the companies we've seen, all the people we've seen, all the eye movement, all the microexpressions, all the tone of voices we've seen, that can either be a contaminating thing if it's a small data set, just like a small data set would contaminate an AI, or if you actually go after a large data set, which most people do not have, then you can be a little better with your predictions. So if we want to make really good decisions as an AI, as a human, or as a group of people, we want to get more and more data as possible, and having more people to help like have their other lenses, because then their unique life experiences and their data chain is essentially added onto ours, right? So this is really important in just understanding the human brain and how we can get a trauma, right? If I tried this marketing copy 3, 4, 5 times, this leadership style 3, 4, 5 times, whatever, failed. Now I think it's not going to work, but somebody else comes in and they're like, oh, just change this variable and it actually works, right? This is to realize how our traumas can get formed, micro traumas get formed. I burned my hand on the stove. I tried this thing, it didn't work, but then trying a new variable or value to get in is really, really helpful in predicting things and making good decisions. And then we want to take that a step further and say, how do we predict the success of a person? How do we look at how an addiction formed, and how do you start to heal, that kind of a thing? So I think this is a really fun conversation.
Yeah, so I agree with the first part. It's very important, of course, to choose the right AI model. That's why what we are developing, also testing different models, and finding the right one or creating the right one, and also have to train. So this from computer science, and then the large data set, as you mentioned, and using the right data set. So these are all critical points. And so this is basically what I like about these questions and the discussions, is that so it can apply to basically pretty much anything. And so you mentioned that predicting the success of a person, not only with recovery from an addiction, but when we talk about business. So I hear these days from many investors and startup accelerators that now they want to assess candidates, founders for potential success. And for me, when I first heard this years ago, it was my first reaction was to it was not that positive, because of course the first thing that comes to mind is that this is going to be very subjective, and the question is that how to do this again, how to do this accurately, and how to do this ethically as well. So I don't know what you think about that. So this is even ethical to get into this, get into the basically the brain mechanics of someone on that level, and the unconscious processes for business. And some people even talk these days about not just simply looking at behaviors, but and psychological features and communication, but even looking at things like genetics, so biology. Because so I worked on this, I studied this myself. So for example, the genetic determinants of risk taking and novelty taking. These are two traits that are, it's very obvious, I guess, to see that how it it can be associated with business success. They are also interestingly associated with addiction vulnerability.